So welcome everybody. Again, this is the Intercultural Competency Webinar 101. That means that this is the introductory event. Our training, as I will explain even more at the end, is composed of 3 different main modules. Essentials of intercultural competency, effective intercultural communication, and power dynamics and systemic discrimination. Each module has several units, and the idea is that we are going to provide now constantly a series of webinars, partially free as this one, partially for fees, as you will see at the end. And for each of the 3 modules, we will have an introductory one that will be always for free, and then other modules that you can decide to join if you like. At the end of this webinar, when you see the thank you page, you should also see a survey available for you. It would be great, just 2 or 3 questions. It would be great if you have time to go through it, because we can really use your help to improve constantly the product that we provide. Okay, I guess now we can start with the content. Is why it's 1:34. So the first thing that I want to share with you is the talking a little bit about the definition of intercultural competency, of course. But before doing that, you see in these outlines that we will go through the definition of culture and how it works. Then we will be ready to talk about what does it mean for us intercultural competency. And then I want to spend some minutes talking about the benefits of diversity. Now, this is again is an introductory webinar. If you are already master in intercultural competency, maybe you will find some elements that you already know, but actually I believe that you will find interesting to see which is our specific point of view on this topic. So to explain how we do in our program and what we provide, let me start with the first things that I want to highlight. And let's remove myself from here, otherwise you don't see. Okay, perfect. Now you should see well the slide. So the first things that I want to highlight is that it's very important for us to understand that we don't need to see cultural diversity or to guess cultural diversity through traits, colors, how we look like, to imagine that there is cultural diversity. As well, we cannot assume that if we don't see any diversity, then those people have the same cultural background. The example, the picture on the left, you have a group of white men. They seems to be colleagues gathering for a NBA or some kind of sport event. They seems to be very similar one another. They seems to be really almost dressed in the same way. Now, of course, we can say that they are men, they are in their middle age or even older, they are white, of course they are carrying a lot of specific traits and cultural elements, but just from a picture, just looking at them, we definitely cannot say that there is cultural homogeneity among them. And this is very helpful and very crucial for us, because when we talk about cultural or intercultural competency, we want to highlight that we are not talking about differences among nationalities or ethnicities. I don't know if you notice, I have an accent. We are based in Canada. But I am from Italy. I arrived in Canada 7 years ago. Of course, when I start speaking, people understand that I have an accent, and they maybe also want to play and try to guess where I'm from. topic that maybe we can discuss a little bit later on. But the point is that when I arrived to Canada, I was visiting an event, a public event, and I met a settlement worker. And this settlement worker heard our accent, and he told us, "Oh, welcome to London, welcome to Canada. Are you just arrived in your campus?" Yeah, we just arrived a couple of weeks ago." "Oh, okay. So where are you from?" And then I said, "From Italy." And he said, "Oh, great. I will put you in contact with the Italian community." Now, there is nothing wrong in this. There is a genuine interest in other human being. You hear an accent and you want to welcome people in a new place. You ask them where they are from because you believe that you take for granted that everybody is happy in telling where they are from, and you are assuming that there is no problems in telling where I am from or in disclosing where I am from. And the moment that I give you a nationality, the moment that I give you a legal characteristics of my identity, my passport, you immediately link me to my community. Now, you hear from my tone and the way in which I'm talking about this topic that there is already a lot of problems here, actually. Okay, when we ask someone, "Where are you from?" we are immediately setting a kind of barrier. That means I am from here, I am normal, I am a part of the group that here is recognized as the normative group, and I am asking you from the bottom of my good heart, I am asking you, where are you from? Because I want to welcome you, but I also am highlighting that you are different. And again, nothing wrong, because you really are able, as human being, we are able to read if a person is asking us where we are from to attack us, to tell us immediately after, "Go back to your country," or if they are asking because they are really interested in us. And it's a nice conversation. A lot of times happens that the moment that you say where you are from, then they say where they are from, maybe back 2 or 3 generations, and you can start a conversation. So I'm not saying not to use "where are you from" sentence. I'm just saying please be aware of all the implications, all the automatic assumptions that we are doing when we ask "where are you from." But I was talking about differences. So this is this idea is to this question, "where are you from," is also an example to try to understand that maybe there is a lot of cultural differences among people that looks like similar or identical as the picture on the left, but maybe not. We cannot take for granted. Think about when you moved, probably if you have a sufficient year of experiences in the job market, when you moved from an organization to another one. We talk about culture with a small c, so you have to learn again the organizational culture in the new place. Maybe little adjustment. Maybe you were able to catch up with the others very fast because you were sharing a lot in terms of cultural background, and we'll see what does it mean that. But still, you have to adjust a little bit. Or it might happen that you had to adjust a lot, even if everybody around you was taking for granted that you were able to adjust without any problem because you are one of us. Being one of us, an insider, it's a very complicated topic, actually. And again, we are using a lot of assumptions and a lot of unfounded assumptions and bias to judge if a person is an insider or an outsider. All this topic will be discussed partially today and more in depth during the next few webinars that we are organizing for you. On the other side, on the right side, you have a picture of young adults or teenagers, okay? What you see there is differences. You see different genders, you see different skin colors, okay? But actually, what is quite clear in this picture is that they are young, and they seem to be very, very close one another. What does it mean? It means that even if we see a lot of visible differences, diversities, we cannot take for granted that they are also culturally different. Okay? And actually, we can definitely say that they are more similar among them than the white teenager in the picture compared to the white middle-aged guys at the NBA sport event. Why? Because of an intergenerational gap. We know, you know, if you work with the youth, you know that sometimes they also have their own subculture, they have their own jargon, they have their own slang and way to talk. And sometimes we don't understand them, even if we are all speaking English, because they modified the language based on their subculture. So they, even if we see differences, and we can see a black guy, we can see an Asian guy, probably a white girl in the middle, still they are much more homogeneous culturally speaking than in comparison to the other group over there. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time on this because this is crucial in order to move on and understanding the entire rest of the training that we have. Um, you don't see cultural differences just looking at people. So we need to stop assuming that there are cultural homogeneity or heterogeneity just looking at the people. We need to talk. And now we can see which is the definition of culture that we use in this training. Now, if you Google culture, you look for a definition, you will see a lot of very, very long definitions. Why? Because culture is a complex topic and needs a lot of words to be described. Okay? For us, for this training, for the purpose of this training, it's important to highlight these two aspects. Culture is a set of practices, beliefs, patterns, ideas that we learned. So it's not something that we receive as a box when we come to this world and we carry on the same identical box for all our life. It's something that we constantly modify through life experiences, socialization processes, and if you are immigrant yourself, or if you work with immigrants, or if you ever read or watched anything about immigration, you know how impactful is this process on our own identities, because we start realizing that things that we were taking for granted in the past in our home country are not anymore uh, visible. We don't find them anymore in the new reality. And we have tons of examples. I'll just give you one example. When I arrived to Canada, I was invited for a party with my family. Welcome, welcome. And in a party, you always have food and drinks and everything. And you also have chips and dip. So I was going to eat my first chip. Now, the chip in Canada are very big. And so I dipped once, and then everybody was lovely chatting around me. And then with this big chip, I was going for the second dip, and everybody stopped talking about around me. Say, "What are you doing?" I didn't have any cultural filter to understand that stupid question. I said, "Well, I don't know. I'm trying to finish this chip." "Well, actually, you are double dipping, and you cannot double dip." So for me, it was a completely new rule, completely new, because back in Italy, we don't have that. Maybe, I don't know, maybe we have the same care, but it's not a formal or formalized rule. And here I see also the rules stated on the tables at the party, or at the gathering. So that was a live experience, something that I experienced myself. And then on, since then, I realized that I cannot double dip. or at least in public event. At home, maybe I do with my family, but for sure not in public event. So that was something that I had in my cultural background in a different form, and then I had to modify in order to adapt to the new form. This is what constantly happens. We constantly become aware about our own cultural background, going through life experiences and socialization processes. The first time that we do a job interview, the first time that we go out with friends, the first time that we travel internationally, the first time we do our things are always very good opportunity to realize something new about ourselves. And that new happens a lot of time in our life. Okay, so this is also something that help us in understanding that we talk about culture with a small c. We will never say in our training, okay, if you work with an Italian guy, do this, and that, and you will be successful. If a Chinese guy is coming to your office, then prepare in this way so everything will be right. Okay, we provide tools and strategies to let you reflect on your own cultural background, cultural lens, cultural biases, because that is the only strategy that is actually helpful and supportive of any interaction with diversity. Okay? Let me move on. An example about how this kind of box, that is not a box, but we constantly modify, works. Let's say that I ask around the world who was Christopher Columbus. Now, I told you that I am Italian. I studied Cristoforo Colombo, Italian pronunciation, years and years and years ago in my elementary cycle. And for us, in our history book, Cristoforo Colombo was a hero. Where is the next slide? Here. Was a hero, someone that discovered America. That was how they told us. Okay, we were kids, so they told us Cristoforo Colombo, Italian from Genoa, north of Italy, discovered America. So it's a hero, and you see the picture on the slide in which he arrived with the cross, and people are bringing gift because they were not waiting but for him, right? So that is my historical learning about Cristoforo Colombo, that I didn't study history, maybe because of the job that I do. I know a little bit more, but let's say that I stop reading about Cristoforo Colombo. That is my idea until I meet maybe an indigenous person, and I learn, I understand through the dialogue, if I am open to the dialogue, that for them Christopher Columbus was more a martyr than a hero. Definitely not a hero. And he didn't discover anything because they were already there for thousands of years. Okay, we need also to consider that for someone else, Cristoforo Colombo could be a completely stranger. Chris who? And we need to understand that these three truths are together at the same time present in our reality, in a very same room, if we have a sufficient amount of participants. Okay, so this is the complexity of one of the tons of examples that we can use to talk about the complexity of the cultural lens and the cultural filters that we use to look at the reality. So at the end of the day, the reality is not something that we can take for granted. It's something that we need to discuss and rediscuss every time we are challenged, or we challenge ourselves, or we discover something new about ourselves, and we can say, okay, wait a second. Why we are talking about reconciliation now in Canada, why we are doing all this kind of thing with indigenous peoples, or because of this historical fact that no one ever told me as Italian in the Italian school system. Now, I don't know nowadays the Italian school system, maybe they are doing so, so I don't want to criticize the Italian school system. But at my time, when I did that, we just studied Cristoforo Colombo in this way. So that was another example to try to understand a little bit how these cultural lens work. And we have other exercises in the next webinars that I hope you will like, and you will be part of, to go a little bit deeper and to try to understand more about our own cultural biases. So now we can talk about which are the main goals of our approach, of our offer in terms of intercultural competency. Now here is stated, and you see that we highlighted two aspects. Let's read this together and I will comment a little bit for you. So first of all, adopting, sorry for the mic. First of all, adopting an interculturally competent approach involves increasing our own sensitivity about differences. So you see that the first step, as I already highlighted a couple of times during this webinar, is to self-reflect, is to reflect on our own biases or on our own way to look at the world, to interpret the world around us. And the first step to be interculturally competent is to become more sensitive about differences. In which way? In the way in which we see differences, first of all, so we don't minimize the differences, we notice them and we highlight them, and also we look for the good in them. A silly example, just to understand a little bit what I'm talking about here. If we talk about greeting processes, okay, as Italian, I should shake your hands, but also hug you and maybe kiss twice, okay, on the cheeks. Now, this gesture, this greeting strategy might be offensive or uncomfortable for someone, but we both want to greet one another. So the fact that I am sensitive to differences means that I am open to the possibility that my way to do things is not the way, is not the best way ever. So I will give up my ethnocentrism. I will give up the idea that everything here, whatever is your own here, is perfect. And newcomers need to just adapt to this reality because we are good and we can teach them a lot. And enter in a situation which you say, wait a second, here we are good. In Canada, we are in a democracy, we have our rights. Of course, there are things that doesn't work, but we're in a kind of safe situation, a good situation compared to many other countries, but doesn't mean that we should tell all the newcomers, now you forget about your past, you are Canadian, and now you follow our rules. Because in this way, we are not sensitive to diversity. We just want to shut down everything is different than us. And that is not the first step to become interculturally competent, is actually quite the opposite. So the first step is to become able to recognize, talk about, have strategies to deal with diversities. The second step, because this might be not sufficient, the second step is to develop skills. This is why we use the word competency, because being interculturally competent means that you have skills. Skills to do what? To determine the most appropriate practices and behavior to communicate and work effectively. So the point here, this is very important. The point is that we don't need to become friends of everybody around us. We don't need to love and be loved by everybody. But definitely, we need to work effectively with everybody, colleagues, commercial partners, suppliers, clients, of course, right? So we need tools and strategies, not to have the right answer always ready to go. So situation ABC, your answer is 1.3. Situation CDE, your answer is 2.5. It's not like that, or at least is not what we provide. What we want to provide you are strategies and tools to read the situation, to understand what's going on, to understand your biases there, maybe to guess or to have a dialogue about the others' biases, perspective, interpretations on what's going on, and then find a common ground to to work effectively. So what you need to do in terms of increasing your skills is to be able to, as fast as possible, situation by situation, communication by communication, determine the most appropriate behavior. That means that with me as Italian, you might use some of your experiences that you have with other Italian guys, but you cannot take for granted that everything that worked with another Italian guy will work absolutely fine with me too. It's not like that. And you already know this. So what you need to do is when you start talking with me and you already have a huge experience with the Italian community, you will be fast in checking some elements and in understanding maybe what I'm looking for or what you can suggest me. Still, you need to treat every people as a unique, individual, subjective situation. And so, situation by situation, the goal is not to have the right answer, but to have the strategy to determine what you believe is the most appropriate course of action. These open also to something that is also very crucial, the possibility to fail. There is nothing wrong in failing. Actually, the failure is one of the indicators that tell us that you are doing something differently. Because if you do always the same things in the same way, if you stay always in your zone of comfort and you never do anything different, of course, let me say almost of course, you will never fail because you know exactly how things will go. You have your routine and nothing will change. So if you fail, that means that at least you tried something unusual for you, new. And if you fail in a situation where all the parts, all the players are committed in creating this dialogue and in determining together which might be the good next steps, the good common ground to move forward, for example, in a workplace relationship, then you have a situation in which failures are not only considered, but are also used to evaluate and to grow together, which is, of course, the dream of every workplace, right? So these are the two elements. Become more sensitive to diversity, understand them, respect them, but also be able to work on them to do what? To determine the most appropriate practices, situation by situation. Okay, now if you are more graphic, this is another way to talk about intercultural competency. If you like to visualize it, you see here the three elements that we were talking about, and I just summarized them. So you need, of course, the first is the sensitivity or affective or feelings. But that is not sufficient. You need also other two pillars. The blue one is the cognitive pillar. You are here to I hope to learn something or to just to refresh some of your knowledge. And that is part of the awareness. You study, you take your master, you read books, and you go on, and you improve your cognitive pillar. But it's not sufficient only the knowledge, and it's not sufficient only the sensitivity. You need the skills. And that is something that I would never be able to do on your behalf. I can share with you, I can talk for hours, I can let you feel the good of diversities, but I cannot put myself in your shoes and do the work for you. That is something that you have to do by yourself with the support of people like me. So that is very important to understand, because otherwise people will feel that, okay, I took a webinar on intercultural competency 101, now I am interculturally competent. It's not like that, unfortunately. And I still, even if my title is intercultural education specialist, I still do a lot of errors and behaviors that are not adequate, but at least I try. Okay. Now, last part of the training, of the webinar, then of course I will open to questions and answer, and anytime you want, you will just use the chat. Um, Slide here. So I will not go deep in each of these 8 points, but I want just to show you these 8 points. These are 8 points that we elaborated through research. Everything in our training is through research, scientific research that we ran on an ongoing basis with the local university. We are based in London, Ontario, and the university is Western University. And we have a partnership. We constantly do research because this topic change constantly. The vocabulary change, a new situation maybe need our attention. So we want to be up to date. And this is a very recent work that we did in collaboration with a few students. The idea is that these 8 points can be used to promote the idea of diversity as a good thing. You can use these 8 points, or we can discuss more about 8 points. We will also have a specific webinar on these 8 points. To use this with, for example, people that don't know anything about diversity or the benefits of diversity, or even to talk to those that maybe say, oh, if we open to diversity, we will decrease the quality of our service. Or another strong argument that is used is to be against diversity is, oh, if we open to diversity, we will hire people just because they are diverse and not because they are because of merit, because they are prepared. These are 2 lies. These are 2 things that are not proved by any, are not supported by any scientific research. And actually, all the scientific research that you can find support the opposite. Diversity always bring good things, especially when well managed, but even when not well managed, still bring good things. And you have these 8 elements. Our training is particularly focused on workplaces. So we focus our attention on the workplaces and not the society at large in general. Okay, so this is why maybe you see things related with hiring, retention, promotion, because we work specifically for workplaces. But I want just to touch one of these points, that is the retention. I don't know if you're professionally involved in employment. One of the elements that I need to work on more when I am called for training, especially from rural areas or isolated areas, is about retention. The counties here in Canada are very good in attracting newcomers. They're very good in advertising themselves, in promising a lot of different great things, and then newcomers arrive and they start enjoying the new environment. But after a few months, a lot of newcomers, in some counties 80% of newcomers arriving, they go back where they're from. It might be Toronto, it might be another bigger city than the city in which they arrived a few weeks or months ago. So that is a problem of retention, not attraction. Why? Because a lot of companies, a lot of organizations spend a lot of energy in attracting people, and then they believe that once they are here, they will adapt, they will enjoy, and they will decide to stay. That is a big error. The retention needs a specific set of strategies to be supported and to be effective. And our training can definitely help on that aspect. Let me conclude showing you the entire offer that we have, just for your reference. I guess, sorry if I'm just guessing, I I'm pretty sure that we are also recording this webinar, and I almost sure that you will receive an email with the recording. But if not, just send us an email. In the next slides, you will have our information, and I will provide you all the information that you need. But basically, you see that we have the 3 modules that I talked at the beginning, and we also have special modules for specific situation. The last thing here is the trainer certification that finish with my picture, because the idea is that we are a social enterprise within the umbrella of a non-for-profit organization, and this program doesn't receive public funds, so we self-sustain ourselves and we sell our training product. That means that one of the things that we do to support and sustain ourselves is certify other people that become trainers, and then they can provide our training using our materials, and we have a kind of agreement with them, so we can make a little bit of money all together and support all the initiatives that we are doing and we want to do in the future. How it works is that basically you go through a certification. Right now is online certification. We are providing the certification through Zoom. When we will back to a more usual situation, if we will be back to a more usual situation, will be in person, a couple of days in person. And the idea is that you receive all the materials, all the instructions to use the materials, all the case studies that we have, and you can provide the training either in your own organization, if you are part of an organization that want to have the training provided internally by you, or to your clientele if you are a private consultant, or if you are thinking about becoming a private consultant.